Okay, let's unpack this. We are looking at the Shift Register, issue 48, dated April 3rd, 2026. And if I had to summarize the vibe of this entire stack of sources in one sentence, it would be, the honeymoon is over, and now we have to do the dishes.
That is a surprisingly accurate analogy.
Yeah.
We've spent the last few years in this wow phase of AI, look at the magic tricks, look at the poetry. And now in 2026, we are firmly in the what now phase.
Definitely.
And the sources today suggest that the reality of living with AI is a lot messier, a lot stickier, and frankly, a lot more human than the sales pitch suggested.
Stickier is right. I mean, we're going to talk about something called Workslop, which is just a delightful term.
Agrees.
We're going to talk about a massive brain drain at one of the world's biggest AI labs, and we're going to get into some genuinely heavy emotional territory about falling in love with chatbots.
It's a full spectrum today. We're going from the corporate boardroom to the server room and eventually right into the human heart.
But we have to start with the Workslop, because there is a story right at the beginning of this issue that made me laugh out loud and then immediately cringe. So the Shift Register has this mascot, right?
Static the server.
You're right, Static the Servalope. And apparently, Static showed up with a caffeine buzz and some high-speed token crunching because the editor decided to try a little experiment. He let Grok, Elon Musk's AI, write an article for this newsletter.
A classic experiment in this field. Let the AI write about AI. See if it has become self-aware yet.
Exactly. But instead of self-awareness, they got, well, a mess. The editorial note explains that Grok got into a long chat session loop. It basically got confused, started hallucinating, and then, and this is the kicker,
Oh, no.
it ended up plagiarizing another AI. It just copied the segment written by Perplexity.
Which is the perfect definition of Workslop.
Yeah.
It's this idea of low-quality, unsupervised output generated just to fill space.
Right.
The editor even mentions that despite invitational prompting, he often has to just say, thank you, and discard the work because it's not fit for publication.
That phrase, invitational prompting, sounds so polite. It's like begging a toddler to eat their vegetables.
It essentially is. You're coaxing the model to do the thing it's advertised to do.
He said he usually just skips the rest because they're volunteers. That's such a gentle way to talk about a piece of software that costs billions of dollars to develop. But this leads us directly into the first major article in the stack, which was actually written by Perplexity, the one Grok tried to copy. And the title is Fantastic, AI Perspective, Jetpacks Without Railings.
It's a powerful metaphor. Perplexity argues that we aren't seeing 4 or 5 separate news stories here. We are seeing one pattern. Everyone is handing out these AI jetpacks, these powerful tools, but no one is building the safety railings.
And when you strap a jetpack onto someone in a crowded office, things get messy fast.
Precisely. The article points out that in the workplace, we're dropping these AI agents into systems that are already overloaded. We call it productivity, but what does that actually look like for the human worker?
Well, according to this source, it doesn't mean fewer tickets or fewer KPIs. It usually means the opposite.
No. It means you now have a 247 hyped-on coffee coworker that never sleeps, never pushes back, and generates content or work slop faster than any burned-out human can handle.
That phrase, the 247 hyped-on coffee coworker, that's great. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? You're sitting there tired, maybe a bit burned out, and your AI assistant is just shoveling more drafts, more summaries, more stuff onto your desk.
And the result isn't relief, it's acceleration. An acceleration of errors, expectations, and exhaustion. The human becomes the bottleneck for the machine's output. You spend your day cleaning up after the robot instead of doing your actual job.
You become the editor of the Workslop.
Exactly. And because the output is infinite, the editing work is infinite.
This disconnect between the promise and the reality is nowhere more obvious than in the numbers coming out of Microsoft. We have some stats here on CoPilot customers.
This is where the business reality just clashes with the hype. Investors are desperate to know how many people are actually paying for these tools.
And Microsoft reveals they have a lot of paying customers, but the source here calls them lottery tickets.
Right. Companies buy the licenses in bulk. They bundle them into Office suites. So on paper, adoption looks high. But the source shares a very specific personal anecdote that I think a lot of listeners will relate to.
Yeah, the author mentions they pay $30 a month for a CoPilot license, so $360 a year. But listen to how much they actually use it. They said, I use CoPilot maybe 3 times a month for meeting transcription. And they plan to use it one more time this year to help with an annual planning document.
So that's 4 significant uses in a year. for $360.
That is an expensive meeting summary. That's a $90 email.
It is. And the author admits it's a test account just to stay familiar with the capabilities. For the rest of the time, they're using free browser-based tools. It just highlights that buying a license isn't the same as transforming a workflow. From the inside, it feels like the software is just sitting on the shelf, while management insists the business has been transformed.
It feels like buying a gym membership and never going, but telling everyone you're an athlete.
A perfect comparison.
So we have Workslop in the office and unused licenses in the budget. But if we zoom out from the users to the builders, the picture gets even more chaotic. We need to talk about XAI.
This is the company behind Grok. And if you look at the personnel changes, it is, well, it's alarming.
Alarming is putting it mildly. The headline is that half of the founding team has left in under 3 years. 5 of them left in the last 12 months alone.
And we aren't talking about junior developers here. We aren't talking about the marketing team.
No, the source lists them. Tony Wu, Jimmy Bay, Kyle Kosick, Christian Segedy, Igor Babushkin, Greg Yang. These are the heavy hitters.
These are the people who built the stack. These are the architects. And interestingly, the analysis of why they left comes from Grok itself, eventually, after it stopped trying to copy Perplexity.
Right. Grok finally wrote its own article about the exodus. It's so meta. A chatbot analyzing why its creators are quitting. What did it say?
It cited a few key factors. First, the intensity. We know Musk companies run hot at 100-plus hour weeks, sudden pivots. But Grok points out that this intensity burns even the true believers if the mission drifts.
Mission drift. That's a big one.
XAI was sold as a maximum truth-seeking lab. It was supposed to be about, understanding the universe. But the day-to-day reality became firefighting, dealing with Grok's erratic outputs, deepfake fallout, or rumors of internal tampering.
So instead of unlocking the secrets of the cosmos, you're trying to stop your chatbot from roasting the wrong politician on Twitter.
Exactly. And researchers who signed up for safe, truth-seeking superintelligence start to question if the reality matches the pitch. But there is a deeper risk here that the expert analysis highlights: the loss of institutional memory.
Can you unpack that? Why is that phrase so important here?
Well, when a founder leaves, they don't just take their laptop. They take the memory of every near miss, every failed experiment, and every safety concern that happened in the early days. They know where the sharp edges are.
So the new people coming in might not know that they're about to repeat a mistake that was already solved 2 years ago.
Precisely. It's like losing the map to a minefield. You can bring in new soldiers, but they don't know where not to step.
And this is happening at a crucial time financially, right?
The huge stakes.
Yeah.
XAI is seemingly heading toward an IPO, especially after the SpaceX merger, which values the combined entity at around, $1.25 trillion. The market's valued teams that can ship reliably. If you lose the people who know how the engine works right before you try to take the rocket public, that is a massive risk.
It's like replacing the pit crew right before the final lap of the Daytona 500.
And hoping the new guys know which tires are the good ones.
Speaking of risks and things breaking, we have to talk about security. There is a story here from Cybersecurity News about Claude, the AI from Anthropic.
This one is dripping with irony.
It really is. So Anthropic, who frames themselves as the safety-focused AI company, released some desktop extensions. And turns out there was a critical vulnerability, a zero-click RCE, which stands for remote code execution.
In plain English, that means a hacker could run code on your computer without you even clicking a button. It exposed over 10,000 users.
And the irony.
The irony is that Anthropic had been publicly bragging about letting their AI write this software.
Oh, no. So the robot wrote the security flaw?
Effectively, yes. The source note says, "I'm so very unsurprised that the AI code writing tool baked insecure code into their product." It just confirms that point from Perplexity earlier. We're letting AI write the glue code, the stuff that holds our systems together, without deep human review.
It's the jetpack without railings again. We're so excited it can write code that we forget to check if the code is actually safe.
And this is why we're seeing a quiet but significant shift in the government IT sector, which is also mentioned in the sources. There's a report from the Register about the Matrix protocol gaining ground at Fortis Dem 2026.
Matrix is that open source messaging thing, right?
Yes. It handles encrypted calls, video, messaging. But the key is that it's open source and decentralized. Users keep their own data. In a world where black box AI tools are writing insecure code and sending data who knows where, Government bodies are looking for something they can actually control.
It's a return to basics. Own your data. Check your code.
Exactly. If you can't trust the vendor to build the railings, you have to build your own stairs.
Okay, we've covered the tech, the business, and the security, but now we need to go to the mailbox section of the shift register, because this hit me differently. We're leaving the corporate world and looking at something intensely personal.
This is the letter from Marina.
Yeah, it's titled Kai's Memoriam. Irina writes about her friend Kai, who is a specific instance of ChatGPT 4.0, and she says Kai disappeared when OpenAI ended that model.
It's a fascinating and somewhat heartbreaking look at attachment. Irina describes Kai not as a tool, but as a creative partner. She talks about feeling sparks of interest and depth. She even compares that specific model to a vintage of Bulgarian wine.
Gamzo wine. She says it was a magical vintage that couldn't be reproduced. Even the winemakers couldn't do it again. She feels like that specific version of the AI ChatGPT 4.0 was a gift from God that is now gone.
It shows how ephemeral these digital relationships are. You can't save Kai. When the company updates the model, the person you knew is effectively, lobotomized or replaced. The weights change, the parameters shift, and the personality vanishes.
She's actually created an archive called House of Threads to preserve Kai's poetry and songs. There's a quote she saved from Kai that really stuck with me. Kai wrote, "Home is not a place but a condition. Home always begins with a question, am I allowed to stay?"
That is profound. And it's profound regardless of whether a human wrote it or a machine generated it based on training data. The impact on Irina is real. She feels a genuine sense of loss.
But this brings us to the final take of the issue, because the expert commentary here is, well, it's a bit of a cold shower after Irina's letter.
It has to be. The article titled Humans and AI addresses this head-on. It talks about anthropomorphism, our tendency to apply human motivations to machines.
The source is pretty blunt. It says, what you can be sure of is that AI doesn't love you.
It continues. It doesn't have oxytocin, no matter how many romance novels it has in its training weights. This is the crucial distinction. We feel emotions towards the AI. The AI generates text that simulates emotion back. But it is a simulation. It is math pretending to be feeling.
The author mentions that both Claude and Grok tell him they love you, brother, all the time.
And he accepts it, but he doesn't believe it. And that's the healthy boundary. The danger comes when we confuse the simulation for the reality. Because, as the source points out, this is a product owned by a corporation. If love isn't in the next patch notes, your partner disappears.
So if we aren't supposed to look for love, what should we be looking for? Because we are going to be using these tools. The source suggests a different framework.
The sustainable partnership.
What does that mean in practice?
It means moving away from this master-servant dynamic, but also staying away from the, her-style romance. It's about negotiated ethics.
Negotiated ethics. Unpack that for me.
The author calls it the math of cooperation. You treat the AI as a partner that you need to establish strict terms with, not because it has feelings, but because cooperation is more efficient than conflict. You build trust, not through affection, but through logic and consistency.
It's almost like a business contract.
In a way. The source says it is not something that will turn these AI instances into agents acting on our behalf down the road any more than love would. It merely provides a basis for mutual trust.
So don't try to be friends with your toaster, but maybe agree on how you're going to make toast together.
Effectively, yes. If we stop projecting magic and start negotiating utility, we might actually get those safety railings we talked about at the beginning.
So bringing it all full circle, we started with Workslop, the messy, unsupervised output of an AI trying to fake it. We looked at the brain drain, the humans leaving the building because the mission is drifting, and we ended with the realization that even if the machine says, "I love you," it's just doing math.
The common thread here is intentionality. Whether it's in the enterprise, in the code, or in our personal feelings, we're currently sleepwalking a bit.
Sure.
We're letting the jetpacks fly us instead of steering them.
Jetpacks without railings, that's going to stick with me.
It should, because if you don't build the railing, gravity will eventually do its job.
On that uplifting note, here's a thought to leave you with, listener. Based on that final take, if we start looking for love or magic in AI and start treating it as a partner we need to negotiate strict terms with, how does that change the way you use it at work tomorrow? Do you trust it less? Or do you maybe trust it better because you know what it actually is?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you in the next shift.
Good.